Hi and welcome to the Mancave Project DIY channel. In this video I want to go through the very basics of cutting sheet vinyl flooring, but specifically commercial safety flooring. Right, so firstly I'm filming this from one of the spare rooms in the house. It's actually the room where our pet parrot resides, Bingo, the blue-fronted Amazon. I've had to put him in his cage because he's very disruptive. So if you hear any screams, any swearing, any singing, that's all down to the parrot, so I'll just warn you now. So the reason for doing this video, I'm a complete amateur. So I'm not a commercial fitter, but I do like to learn new skills. I'm 58 years old and probably virtually retired now. And I've got a friend who has a flooring company. Always fancied learning how to do flooring. Carpets I can do, carpet tiles, but when it comes to vinyl fitting, especially the cutting side, I've really struggled, especially with regard to safety flooring. Really tough materials, and the added pressure that these materials cost a lot of money. You can make any mistakes with regard to the cutting and virtually have to throw that piece away. So there's a lot of pressure. I've really struggled. I've come back to it. I've been doing this for about 12 months, but moved away from it because I couldn't really get the cutting right. Come back to it, had the same faults as before, which I'll go through. So the reason for the video really is to show what faults I've been doing, how I've not been able to cut the vinyl very accurately, but I've realised potentially what I've been doing wrong. And so this video is really about rectifying those issues. Hopefully it may help someone that's looking to cut vinyl for the first time, whether that's a domestic vinyl or a commercial vinyl. And well, hopefully it's going to help at least one or two people. So that's what we're going to go through the process. So to start, I'll show what I was doing wrong, what I've realised that I'm doing wrong, and what I've rectified. And now I can cut fairly accurately as long as I take my time. Right, so first thing I want to do is just look at the apparatus that I'm training with. So I don't have access to a site. So if you're an apprentice employed, then obviously you've got site work, which is great. But for me, don't have any access to a site, so I'm having to train or practice on a form that I've built. So this is 18mm plywood, external corner and an internal corner. One side I've been practicing with carpet. So there's gripper rod here. Didn't have any underlay. This is just an old gym mat which I put down, but serves the same purpose. So on one side I'm practicing on carpet and the other side is for vinyl. So on the vinyl side, just a few safety things which I've learned to my cost over the time that I've been doing this. If you're going to build something like this, make sure that it's secure. So with this, I'm on a wooden floor. I've put double-sided tape underneath all over it so it won't move. Very important. I've cut myself twice while I've been doing this, and both times either the material has moved or the form has moved, and because I'm using quite a lot of pressure, the blade has bounced away from the form or the material. Only slight cuts, but enough to shock me into realising that I needed to do something. So the first thing is, if you're going to build a form like this, make sure it's nice and securely down either onto the floor or onto a table so it doesn't move. Second thing is regarding the actual securing of the material. I have managed to get hold of some F46 pressure sensitive glue, which is great. This is an F-ball product, so that's what this surface is coated with. But before I had access to that, I've got a slap hammer or a carpet tack hammer, and in order to secure the vinyl down, I've just put 4 tacks in each one so it's nice and secure. Problem is, if the material moves while you're exerting pressure, as I said, the blade will bounce out, either cut you or cut your hands or cut your body. So make sure this is secure, and make sure that what you're practicing with, the material you're practicing with, is secure as well. Two other things regarding safety. I always make sure I've got a nice sharp blade in the knife, and I always wear now a level 5 cutting glove on my non-dominant hand. So for me that's my left hand, and then just a standard glove on the right. You can wear 2 level 5 gloves on both hands, but this tends to be quite thick and these are quite thin, so it does give me a little bit of improved dexterity if I just wear the one glove on the non-dominant hand and then and a thinner glove on the other one. So regarding equipment, the only things that I've been using to practice is a carpet fitter's knife. This is a dolphin knife. Ergonomically it's nice, slim, easy to change the blades. A lot better than a standard Stanley knife, but if that's all you've got, then just use a standard Stanley knife. Carpet bolster chisel, just for getting the vinyl down into the corner, and a cheap standard heat gun. Right, so the material I'm going to use for this video, I think this is Polysafe standard commercial safety flooring. If it's not, if you think it's something different, then please put it down in the description below the video. But I do think this is Polysafe standard. If it is, it's a multi-layer material, so there's a few layers that go into this to make it up. There's some aggregate in there as well. It is a really tough material. It's not the toughest of safety flooring, probably not the worst to deal with, but does blunt your blade very quickly, and because of the aggregate that's placed in this to make it hard wearing and non-slip, it can deflect the blade quite easily as well. Right, so first thing I've done with this form is to coat this with the pressure sensitive glue, F46. I'm hoping that's right, I think it is. It goes down white as it is in the tub. Wait till it goes clear. Don't put the, well, this is what I've been told, don't put the vinyl down into wet glue. So this is nice and secure. Again, from a safety point of view, that's what you need. As I said before, if you haven't got that, then a slap hammer or a carpet tack hammer, just 4 tacks in the vinyl just to make sure it's nice and secure. Right, so before I talk about what corrective measures I've done in order to improve the accuracy of the cutting, I'll just go through what I realised I was doing wrong. I mean, I don't know if you can see from the camera, but the bottom of this form is chewed up, absolutely chewed up, which is a bit of a indication of what I might have been doing wrong. So this piece is going to have to be replaced at some point. So basically what I was doing wrong is, with any job, as I say, it's all about confidence. Human nature to overcorrect. When you're told to do something, especially when you're doing it for the first time or you're not used to doing it, someone tells you to do something, you kind of go a few steps beyond that. So basically the instruction that I was given with regard to cutting vinyl is that you angle the blade, the way you hold the blade, and the main thing I was doing wrong is I was told to exert a lot of pressure against the side wall or the skirting in order to keep that blade running straight. What I was actually doing, I didn't realise I was doing it, is holding it at the angle that I've been instructed to do and pushing the blade towards the skirting or the vertical face of the room. What I was actually doing is exerting so much pressure that I was actually pushing down as well. And because of the angle of the blade, sort of like that, what I was actually doing is the very tip of the blade, the point, was actually getting buried either into the skirting or into the substrate or the floor. So whether that be screed or wood in this case. And so as I'm exerting a lot of pressure, supposedly against the skirting, but I didn't realise I was actually exerting a lot of pressure vertically as well, is the tip was going into the substrate or the skirting and basically finding its own way. So in the wood, it was just going sort of the easiest, the path of least resistance, if you like, and coming out from the wall, and I'd end up scalloping or scooping out pieces of vinyl. In order to correct that, in my mind, I wasn't pushing hard enough, so I'd exert even more pressure, and that was just making it even worse. It was digging further into the floor and coming out even further. So the more I scooped out, the more pressure I exerted, the worse everything was getting. It was just a vicious circle. Right, so I'm hoping I can show this correctly. So talking to professional carpet or floor layers, this is the kind of angle I was showed to do. So almost a 45-degree angle in this, maybe slightly more. And then because, and I'll show you the position of the hand, because your thumb is against the vertical part of the room, almost like a, I don't know, 20-degree angle out from the wall. And my biggest problem, as I said, was I was digging the blade into the substrate or into the skirting, and it was the tip of the blade was digging in and just finding its own sort of way, no matter how much I pushed. Again, for a professional floor layer, this isn't an issue because they've got muscle memory, they've got obviously the huge confidence, they know exactly how much pressure to apply, and they're not doing what I was doing or what an apprentice might do, and that's applying pressure almost everywhere. Right, so how do I rectify in order to gain the confidence initially? So once you start cutting fairly accurately, it's then about repetition, obviously muscle memory, all that type of thing. So this is what I've been told. If this is not correct, then obviously if you're a professional floor layer, put in the description below what you would do differently. But the way I've been told to do, to hold a knife, not just from the professional floor layers that I've had instruction from, but also I went on a free course at F-Ball in Leek. So we did some cutting. Basically, hold the knife with as close to the blade as is safe. Hold the knife up here, and I've tried that and you just lose all control. So close to the blade, first finger sort of down here, and it's the bottom of your finger which runs along the base of the vinyl. Thumb over the top. As I said before, it's your thumb runs along the skirting or the wall and creates the angle out from the wall. So first finger running along the bottom, and again for a professional floor layer, that seems to be about the right angle. For me, I was getting it all wrong. So the two things I did to rectify the issues I was having coming out from the wall, even though I was pushing as hard as I could, is I just increased the angle of the knife from there to there, just so that the tip comes away. Again, don't overcorrect, don't go vertically, just enough so that the tip of the blade doesn't come into contact with the substrate or the skirting, and it's basically just the back of the blade there. If anything's going to come into contact with it, it's that. So from there, just a slight rotation more to the 90 degrees. The second thing I did was, always been taught 2 hands on the knife, not one, especially with cutting safety flooring, but using your less dominant hand, or your, in my case, a left hand, to almost like steer the knife. Because one of the other issues I was doing is, as I came, starting off the cut was great. As I started to come more towards sort of in line with body and further, I didn't realise that the knife was actually doing this, rotating out. So it was actually almost the side of the blade that was cutting. And again, that has a huge potential to come away from the wall. Again, the path of least resistance. So 2 things I did to try and correct everything, which has done, is just put a little bit more of an angle on so that the tip of the blade doesn't come into contact with the substrate or the floor or the skirting, and then use my left hand to make sure that the blade or the knife actually runs down parallel to the wall instead of turning away, so almost steering the blade. Two conscious thoughts as I'm going through, increasing the angle and steering the actual knife. Those two things alone have allowed me to improve the accuracy of the cut, gain more confidence, and then obviously I've just been cutting and cutting and cutting, getting more muscle memory. So let's put that into practice. Right, so we've got our piece of vinyl. I'll also run through a few things that standard practice, I suppose, with regard to floor fitting, but little bits that have made this a lot easier for me as an amateur or as an apprentice. So we're faced with this. Normally when we're that I've seen when they're laying vinyl, they don't glue down straight away. You lay the vinyl out and it might be up the wall like that quite significantly, and what they'll do is they'll just cut down any excess down to maybe 2 or 3 centimeters up the side of the wall, make relief cuts, so anywhere that there's any tension on the vinyl they'll also do that. Once they've done that and the vinyl's been cut down but not trimmed in, they'll fold the vinyl back and then they'll do what's called blacking out, which is actually applying glue to the substrate or the floor. Again, with this particular glue, they'll put fans on, they'll wait for that to go clear, and then it becomes sort of the trimming process. So we'll get to that stage. So let's just sort of pretend that that's the stage we're at. Obviously we've got a large radius here, well away from the wall. A professional fitter might actually go in now and trim that down, having the experience, but again, as a pure amateur, there's no way I'd do that. I've got no idea or any relationship where the cut would actually end up against a wall and probably end up cutting it short. So that's where the heat comes in. So first thing, just apply a bit of heat. Not too much, just to make the vinyl more supple. Go in with the stair bolster. Again, just to make that radius as tight as possible. I've seen fitters who use the back of the blade to do that, but again, on that F-ball course, you try and get it instilled into you that the only thing a blade is used for is for actually cutting. So once we've got a tight radius, place the blade in as close to the, obviously right up against the where the skirting meets the floor. Push the blade in just slightly, and again that gives me a good indication of whether I've got a sharp blade or not. Now this is a brand new blade, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a sharp blade, but the fact that it's gone in really easy to the vinyl shows me that I can actually carry on using this. First finger against the floor, nice and tight up to the blade, thumb against the wall. This angle, what I call the professional angle, which is what they would normally do, this is where I was going wrong, so I'm just going to rotate this up slightly. Second hand on the back of the knife, and again I'm going to use that to make sure that it stays in that plane all the way through and the knife doesn't turn, potentially come out. I'm pushing with my hand against the, trying not to push down but push against the wall or the skirting, and then just straight through. That's still probably a little bit high, so I can trim that down, but at least what I haven't done is what I would normally do and sort of scallop that out. So that's another go. It's the same process every single time. Make sure this is fastened down, obviously from a safety point of view if you're practicing like this. A little bit of heat. And then with the bolster, just to get that as tight up to the base of the skirting as possible. Cut in, rotate up, keep this left hand so that, you know, I'm steering this all the way down in a straight plane. Cut through. And literally just been doing that time and time and time again. So that's really where I'm at the moment. I've got a lot more confidence. I'm definitely not pushing as hard as I was because there's not that desperation anymore. I mean, obviously these cuts could be improved. The fact that I've scalloped out the bottom of this board doesn't help with seeing whether it's flush up against the wall, but to me this is 10 times better than what I was doing before. I'll do another video, I think, going and doing external and internal corners and show you where I'm up to there. But as a complete amateur, this is not an instructional video with regard to this is how you do it. I just wanted to show that if anybody's having the same issues that I was having, where you just couldn't figure out why you was, even though you were applying loads of pressure, why you were still scalloping out some of the vinyl, then maybe this is going to help you. So just to recap, instead of there, just lift the knife slightly. It's still against the base, but lift the knife slightly so that that tip does not come into contact with the floor or the skirting. Use the left hand to steer the knife so that I'm not, the natural position when I get to about here is to turn the knife like that, and again that was creating a lot of problems. This definitely helps. And then just push in to the wall, nice pressure, and just go along. Again, make sure you've got a really sharp blade. I think that was put to me is that a piece of vinyl like this, depending on the length, could be £100 plus. A blade from a trade point of view is 4 or 5 pence each. So just changing the blades makes sense. Right, so there you go. Hopefully this will help at least 1 or 2 people. I couldn't find a video which went into depth regarding the angle of the knife cutting in. There are videos that do that, but not from a sort of amateur or an apprentice point of view, looking at what the potential difficulties might be and what somebody like me would possibly be doing wrong. So that's really the reason for doing the video. So yeah, those 2 points of instead of the blade or instead of the knife being like that, just tilting it up a little bit, and then obviously using your non-dominant hand to actually steer the blade to make sure that it stays in that true straight plane and you don't naturally start turning it out like that. Obviously that's exaggerated so it can come away from the wall. Those 2 points in themselves given me a lot more confidence, and I wish I was doing that earlier on in the year. Please subscribe to the channel, and as usual, if you've enjoyed this particular video, hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching.